Today's video is going to talk about the Apple Watch versus the Garmin Forerunner series, or even Fenix series for that matter. We're going to look at kind of the biggest differences between these two platforms, what works best for you as an athlete and as an everyday user of technology. So stay tuned for an honest look at these two devices. All right, boy, do we have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to jump into this video right away. So the scope of this is to not necessarily talk about specs as much as it is to talk about how you as an athlete or as an individual user of technology would decide to choose between some of these watches. Most notably, the Apple Watch, this is the Series 6 version, versus a Garmin watch. And I've got a Forerunner 245 Music and a Fenix 6S Solar right here on this side. And so big picture first, what we're going to talk about is the overall shape and design of these watches. Apple, notorious for having a square shaped watch. To me personally, I think it looks bad. I much prefer a round face watch like in the Garmin series. You can see my watch face on here is round. It's just a more aesthetically pleasing design to me. The square does fit well on your wrist, but it is kind of off-putting from a style standpoint to me personally. That's just kind of the big picture size and style to think about. Apple Watch does come in two sizes, 40 and 44 in this generation. This is the 44 millimeter. Most of the Garmin's are round. They do offer some square ones as well, but for the most part, they are round. Again, I don't want to dive too much into specs, more about usability and usefulness and how you should decide between these two. So this is the non-LTE version, just the standard GPS version. You can see it doesn't have any of the red. It does have your pulse oximeter and your heart rate monitor built in, just like you have on Garmin's, but the Garmin's doesn't have that pulse oximeter built into it. It's just going to take your heart rate, not your blood oxygen levels. So what I like about both of these devices, or both series of these devices, is they work great for things like notifications and tracking your activities. Now, I like to ride my bike and run most of the time. I'm not a big swimmer, but I occasionally do get in the pool sometimes. So for me, these are primarily running and biking devices. Now, without having my phone with me, which is a big thing. Like, I never ride and run with my phone. I always take just my watch. So I have the ability to put music on both of these devices and the Apple Watch. But a big drawback to the Apple Watch is that you cannot sync Spotify to play without your phone. You absolutely need your phone in order for this to work. Now, that's only on the GPS version. If you have the LTE version, you can play Spotify over the air just like you would with a Garmin watch and without having your phone, but you need that LTE version of the watch. Now, the downside to that, which I learned, is that the LTE versions only work with certain carriers. If you have prepaid, like Verizon prepaid or AT&T prepaid, it's not going to work. You have to have a postpaid account. So if you're like a Google Fi user or a Simple Mobile user, one of those people, it's not going to work on the Apple Watch. You have to have a dedicated smartphone plan with somebody like Verizon or AT&T, postpaid, monthly. So it just drives the overall cost up. Now, if you're using a Garmin watch like the Fenix or the Forerunner 245, the Spotify playlists will sync, your wireless headphones will sync, and you can play music on your runs. And it can be an Apple, AirPods. It can be any other Bluetooth headphones will sync right to the watches and allow you to listen to music during your activity. No phone, no data plan required. So that's a huge plus to both of these devices right here. Now, one of the other pluses for the Apple Watch over the Garmin series is that the notifications on this are tremendously better, like night and day different. You get notifications on the Apple Watch, things like iMessages, text messages, phone calls. You can talk right from the watch when you answer a phone call. You can reply using your voice on the watch, using the screen to write on it if you want to send little emojis and stuff. So the Apple Watch is a much, 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 much more powerful device for communicating and for usability from a technological standpoint. If you have a Mac computer, this thing can unlock your Mac computer as you walk up to it. It just has a lot more built into the ecosystem if you have Apple devices and if you have other components of the Apple ecosystem to use it with. Now, the notifications on the Garmin watches are really, really good. You still get full text notifications. You still get the ability to send quick replies. You still get the ability to see phone calls and to answer and reject phone calls and then pick them up on your phone. So it does have a lot of usability built in on these watches. but it's a stark comparison between the two. You know, these are much, much more like dumb phones, and this is much, much more like a smartphone, if you want to think of it that way. Now, for me, what does that mean with my usability and how I like to use the watches? Well, I'm kind of stuck in the middle, right? Like, since I have an iPhone and since I have a Mac, I tend to wear this most of the time when I'm around the house or at work, because I can do things like answer texts and, you know, interact with people that want my attention. The Garmin, on the other hand, is a lot more powerful for when I go on my runs and rides, because the battery life is better. You know, the GPS to me probably is a little bit more accurate. It just gives me a better quality for my athletic activities in the data and in the usability than the Apple Watch. But that requires me having two devices. So I'm sort of stuck in the middle between both of these. I do much more prefer the battery life over the Garmin's. They're probably 5 to 7 days. The solar one is awesome to be able to have that feature if you're outside for a multi-day trip. You can charge the watch on the go. You know, Apple Watch, you're looking at 2 days, absolute maximum usability life on this guy. Maybe 1.5, maybe 1, depending on how much you use it. Overall weight between these guys, it's really, really similar. The Phoenix is a little bit heavy. The alloy version of the Apple Watch is nice and light. I do like the weight on this. The stainless steel ones are a little bit heavier than the alloy ones, so just keep track of that if weight is important to you. The Forerunner 245 is nice and light. I actually really like the build on this. This is probably one of my favorite Garmin watches that are out there right now. It doesn't have that same nice LCD screen like the Apple Watch does. You know, this thing really, really, really looks beautiful. I mean, the colors are accurate. You know, it's just a very, very sharp looking display, tons of features. You know, it's just really nice to use and just looks good. The usability is good. It's fast. You know, it's just a really, really pleasant watch to own. And it just, the usability of it is just really great. Again, especially if you have Apple devices like a Mac computer or an iPhone, it just really is a fun watch to use. I think if I had to do it all over again, you know, and just pick one watch to go with, I personally would use the Garmin. I don't know if I would choose between these two. Like, you know, the Garmin's always producing new stuff. Apple's always producing new Apple Watches. So it is sort of one of those things where you should take a lot of different sort of factors into play when you're deciding which watch to buy. I will say, though, as somebody who likes to bike and run every day, I'm definitely sort of stuck between these two guys right here. And it's going to be hard for me to decide which one I eventually go with. But thanks very much for watching this video. Check out everything else I have on YouTube. Rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.